All right, happy Friday, everyone. How's everybody doing? Kind of get the same sentiment. Everybody's doing okay, but they're really quiet. They're just kind of low energy right now, waiting for the end of the semester. I guess I made the joke to my AS students a few weeks back that we were in the Wednesday of the semester. I guess we're kind of like now in the Thursday of the semester. We're just basically waiting for Friday to come up, and then of course Friday also starts with F, as does finals. So there's that you have to worry about as well. I don't know. Finals is like a Monday that occurs at the end of the week. It's just forced. It's miserable. Sorry to bring that up, guys. Today we're going to be talking some more about Alteryx. So the question came up, is this a related assignment? The answer is no, this is actually an independent assignment. I will even so as far as say this is not my assignment. Most of the assignments that we do in this class are things that I've created because they're specific things that I want to talk about or things I want to teach. I had one gap of an assignment and I really just didn't have the time to create one. So I found this one online. It was through the Ernst & Young shared services tool, and it actually was created by another professor at another university. And it's pretty good because it talks about some tools that I don't normally use when I teach Alteryx. So that was kind of what I wanted to do. That being said, this is largely an independent task. So I'm going to give you kind of a quick rundown, and then you're going to be doing most of the work just based on the information that's in the assignment. It is not meant to be difficult. As it says, it's meant to acquaint you or further acquaint you with tools that you will be using fairly regularly. Some of these are going to be ones that you've used already, like the very first part actually talks about how to use the I think it's the select tools in there. Yeah, select tool, okay, which we've already used before, but it's still going to be looking at the parameters of the select tool. Then parts 2 and 3 will actually engage in tools that we've not used before. I tried to provide as much detail as I possibly could, and I think that it should be sufficient to complete the assignment. One of the online students has already completed the assignment, so that's a good indication that everything is there that's necessary. But you will need to download the data from Brightspace, and you will need to import that onto the Alteryx website. I did give you an example of what the workflow should look like. All right, and there are 3 parts to this assignment. You can see part 1, part 2, and part 3 are labeled here. So very quickly, I want to note a few things. All right, first of all, for each of the screenshots you need to provide, it needs to be a workflow, much like the one that I provided, and then you provide screenshots for the individual tasks as well, highlighting your to note that your results match what my results are here. And I apologize that you will notice that I've got this circled here. It's really roughly circled. It's really hard to draw an even circle in the snipping tool. So that's why it looks so bad, because it was drawn by my hand. It's my shaky hand trying to do a mouse. So that's why that is. But you want to check those and make sure your results are consistent with my results here. The other thing I wanted to talk about, this is more of an incidental thing. You do not need to do this, but I think it might be beneficial for you. Part 2 has a very large database. And one problem is that when you start dealing with large databases in Alteryx, basically Alteryx will rerun every single task anytime you run a new function. And then maybe may start to get really tedious if you want to update information that's in other areas. So one way we can control for this are called containers, which I've not talked about yet, but is a very common tool in Alteryx. So you'll notice that I've got like boxes that are surrounding my tasks here, surrounding my tools, okay? These are allowed not only to segregate information that is not necessarily related to one another, but also to shut off the analysis if we don't want certain analysis to run while we're working on other tasks. So I want to show you how to create a container, and then I want to show you how you actually can control what's within the container, what's running at a certain time. So let's go ahead and go to Alteryx, and I haven't actually started up yet my workflow, so I need to find that real quick. But all right, here's my Alteryx 3 workflow. I'm going to try to make this as large as possible, but still visible so that everything can see. So as you see, I've got the workflows or the containers there. Again, the containers are just creating a box that everything fits in. You will notice that there are the buttons over here. There's buttons over here in the upper left-hand corner. These are basically active and inactive buttons. If the buttons are split to the right, or the radio button split to the right, that means that information will update and it will reload every time you run a task. If it's to the left, basically nothing will update when you continue or update tasks. So if you're working on one part and you don't want to run the tasks in another part, it's really effective, For example, like I said, the part 2 database is really, really large. I think one of them is, let's see, the vendor base, the vendor list or the consolidated screen list. I don't remember. One of them is very large. Wanted to take a look at that. Yeah, 11,000 rows for the vendor database. So a pretty large database. So if you're working in part 1 or part 3 and you don't want this to continuously update, you can actually create a container and then shut it off so it won't continuously update. That's also why this looks kind of washed out in my PDF, is because I have these currently turned off instead of turned on when I created the screen capture. But how to create one of these? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead. I guess I should actually be on my workflow. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete the container only. All right. And you'll notice that I've got the tools out now, just like we normally see them. To create a container, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can just click and you can highlight all the tools that you want to put in a container, just like that. Alternatively, if you just want to select every single one of the tools manually, you can click on them and then hold down Control to select multiple at the same time. All of these are possibilities. This is the easiest way, just to highlight just by dragging that, but it may not be practical if you've got a really large workflow. But once you've got all the tools highlighted that you want to put in a container, you're just going to right click and say New Container. And I'm just going to name this container Part 1. There you have it. If I want to shut it off so it doesn't update every single time I run something, I just click that radio button up there. So since these are independent tasks, parts 1, 2, and 3, that will be very helpful for you so that you're not necessarily having to run everything updating as you work through the tasks. But yeah, these are the 3 parts that are designed to point you to the tools. I'm going to give you the rest of today to continue working on that. If necessary, I'm going to pause the recording, and if necessary, I'll provide some insight. If there's something that's causing people trouble or some questions, I'll put that in the recording at the end. But I'll let you go ahead and start working on that right now. All right, just as a quick update for everybody, since we had this issue come up, I don't know why some computers default to cloud native tools instead of standard tools, but please make sure you're working on standard tools. I honestly am not sure if it will make a big difference this time, but then again, I'm uncertain because I've always been working on standards. So just make sure you're doing your task on there. If you've already started and have to back up, I apologize. At least we caught it early. All right, so I didn't specify in the instructions. I didn't want to specify here because I thought I had full detail, but apparently not. There's some questions about what should be joined on the second part between the vendor file and then the consolidated screening list. The instructions that were given was actually join the name fields, so vendor name and name fields. That's one of the reasons is you actually wanted to make sure that the case was standardized across the files so that you could actually match those together. And you can see I did uppercase. You don't have to do uppercase, but that's just want to make sure they're consistent across. For context, when you join the files should actually have 22 matches across. They're going to have a bunch of them that do not have matches. So most of your records are going to fall in the left join, which basically means you're going to have records in your vendor file that are not on your consolidated screening list. In other words, these are companies that are not identified as suspicious or problematic. So that's basically what you're identifying there. So I apologize for the confusion on that.
What would you summarize that?
Summarization was done by vendor ID, create date, status date, and vendor name.
What was the
Actually, I totally apologize. I did by record ID, date, create date and status. I believe that's great. Record date and status, yeah.
Does that mean highlighted? It says remove.
So just a quick note, I have added a little bit of instruction. I'll put this on Brightspace for the instructions to match on the vendor name fields, but everybody should know that here. If you have any other questions as we're moving forward, feel free to shoot me an email, come see me in office hours, but see you next Friday. Other than that, have a good weekend and see you all on Monday.